Hello everybody and welcome to this MakerMeet live stream for Kerry Libraries. My name is Chris Reyna and I'll be walking you through our project today, and our project today is going to be a superhero flyer. So this is a very easy project. You don't need almost any materials at all. I expect all of you will have these at home. So if you don't have your materials gathered at the moment, I'm going to give you just a moment or two to pop off and get them. So you're just going to need a few things. So you're going to need some glue. Okay, so just a Pritt stick will be fine. If you have other glue, that's fine too, but generally a Pritt stick is kind of the best thing to use. You will need probably a pair of scissors, and you'll need those scissors just to cut out the template for a superhero flyer. And that's the template there. Now, if you haven't downloaded it yet, you could download and print it off. And that, or to be fair, you don't even need the template. All you need is kind of a front and a back. And that's something that you could draw yourself, but you just would need to make sure that the front and the back match up. Okay, and you'll see what I mean when the project goes there. But if you don't have the template yet, you can get it from our website, which is www.makermeet.ie/downloads, DOWNLOADS. So you can get it from there, you'll download it, it's a very small file, it will download very, very quickly, and you can do a print off. So the other thing you'll need is something to color with, so either colored pencils or markers. I prefer colored pencils myself, but if you have markers, then get some markers as well. And then the very last thing you're going to need, which is going to make your superhero fly, is just a straw. So any kind of a straw will do. I know paper straws are what are mostly available now. I have some kind of older plastic straws, but if you have plastic straws, that's fine. Paper straws will all work as well. If you happen to have a straw that has a bend in it, if you remember those old straws, so I'll show you, we do that. And if you have one that has a bend in it like that, it's actually just a little bit more fun when you make your superhero fly. So if you have one of those straws, that's fine. But honestly, any straw will do. So that's pretty much all the materials that you're going to need to make this project. So just before we start, also I just want to say that if you have any questions, or if you'd like me to slow down, or if you'd like me to speed up, or anything like that, there is a chat function in YouTube, and the chat is live at the moment, and that should be just kind of down on your right-hand side, just on your right-hand side in the live stream window in YouTube, or on YouTube. So after that, just a little bit more about ourselves. We are based, we're based in Killarney mostly, but I have colleagues in Tipperary and colleagues in Mayo, and we deliver STEAM workshops to schools and educational institutions nationwide. And STEAM is an acronym, or it stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, and Maths. So whenever we do a project for yourselves or for schools, we try to incorporate as many of those things into the project as we can. And while today's project, the Superhero Flyer, is a very simple project, it does incorporate some of those things. It certainly will incorporate some art, because you're going to do some coloring. It would incorporate some engineering, because you're going to make your superhero fly, and there's a lot of engineering involved in that. It won't really incorporate maths in the way that you're going to do any maths. However, there are maths involved in making your superhero fly, but we probably won't go through those maths today. And then in terms of this particular project, really there's no technology involved at all, and little science as well. Maybe a little bit of science, but again, certainly no technology. This is a very basic, hands-on project. So If there was any more information you'd like, please feel free to reach out to us. We're available. All of our contact details would be on our website, which again is just www.makermeet.ie. So during the course of this project, because it's going to be difficult for me to hold things up and show them to you this way, I have a second camera just over my head, and probably most of what we're going to be doing, I'll use the camera that's over my head, because you'll be able to see exactly what I'm doing overhead like that. So probably then, if you have now gathered your materials, then get them organized on your desk. It's always a good idea just to have things right to hand when you're building a project. And of course, I know very well I always forget things myself and have to pop up and go and get them, but that's all right. We won't go too fast for this project. All told, this will probably take us about a half an hour, maybe 40 minutes, something like that, depending, but it won't take any longer than that. So it's a very short, very easy, simple project. So just to start, I'm going to pop over to my overhead camera here. And so now you can see this is here, this is where I am. So this is just my desk area and everything here. And I have some of my materials over here, and I have some materials over here, and then I even have some further materials over here behind me over here as well that I can reach out and get. And I have my mouse here, a wireless mouse, in case I need to pop over and check any comments that anyone might have. So kind of the first thing you're going to need really is your template. So this is the template that we've done up. So you can see I have a couple of them here. Actually, I have two of them here. We'll only need one of them for the moment. So we'll take that and put the other one aside. So this is the template. So this template, as I said before, you don't need to use this, but if you can see here on the cut line around it, this will match this exactly. And that's kind of the important bit in order to make your superhero fly. So this is going to be the back, and this will be the front. So when we cut this out and put it together, it's going to look like this. So again, that's the front, and that would be the back of the template then, okay? But we're going to color it before we cut it out. So the other thing just to say as well too is that sometimes when you download a template and you print it, sometimes your printer wants to print it as large as possible. And that's happened to me before. And to show you an example here, so I have one here that my printer took control of and printed off. And as you can see, this one is much larger than these. Now, that's not too much of a problem. However, I will tell you that when you go to try and make this fly with just your straw, it won't fly very well. And that's because it's so big and it's a little bit heavy. So it's a little bit heavy. So if you have a smaller size, around A5 size, and A5, just so you know, is half the size. This is an A4 sheet here. And so if I were to fold that in half just like that, that is A5 size. So normally that is the correct size. And you can see here, that's the right size to have your printout on. All right, so let us move on and just start coloring. That's the very first thing that you need to do. Very straightforward and very easy. So I have quite a lot of markers here. So I have quite a lot of different colored markers and things like that. So you can use markers to color, but I prefer to use colored pencils. And there's kind of a very good reason for that. So I have some colored pencils here. So I have some colored pencils here, and I have a few more here as well. So the reason I like colored pencils is because it lets me put some shading on what I'm coloring. And that makes a difference, I think. That makes a bit of a difference. I think it looks a little bit better. Also, the other thing as well is that maybe sometimes when you have just markers, I'm sure that you've all done this. You know, you put some marker on something, and let's actually do that. So we'll take a marker here, and I'll do it up here away from everything. But when you put a marker on something, sometimes when you turn it over then, what can happen is the marker can bleed through a little bit. Now, it didn't much there because these are kind of good markers. These are Crayola markers. But if you use Sharpies or very heavy markers, it can sometimes bleed through the paper. And that's why I have this mat here, so that if anything were to bleed through, it won't go onto my desk, it will just go onto here. Now, you don't need that mat. You could just put a bit of paper down or something like that. That way you won't get in trouble if you're coloring something and the markers go through to maybe your kitchen table or your desk or anything like that. So the very first thing we're going to do is I'm going to color both the front and the back of my superhero. Now, the colors are entirely up to you. You can color anything you like, any color that you like. It doesn't make any difference at all. So I think I'm going to start off with my superhero's hair. And I'm feeling that my superhero has kind of reddish hair, maybe. I think my superhero might have reddish hair. So I'm going to start. Now, just before I start, I'm going to kind of show you some tricks as well about when you color. So it's almost always not a great idea to color straight down like this. So if you're holding your pencil straight down, that tends to dull the point there. So you can see the point of my pencil, and that tends to dull that. It makes it hard, and then you have to keep sharpening it. So it's usually a good idea to hold it as I'm holding it here, kind of at the side, so that I'm not putting the point of my pencil or my marker straight down. I'm at the side. Now, the other thing that you can do is, rather than holding it here up at the very tip, okay, so rather than holding up at the very tip, I like to hold it just back a little bit. Now, that doesn't feel very natural thing to do, but it does two things. And those two things are, one, it lets you go a little bit slower, because you have to work a little bit slower so it doesn't kind of go everywhere and get all jumbled up. And that's a good thing, especially in this project, because we have lots of time. And then the second thing it allows me to do, when I hold it back there, I'm going to show you, it allows me to keep the point of my pencil, the tip of my pencil, it allows that to keep it nice and sharp. So I'm going to start off by coloring the hair here, and I'm going to go nice and gently first. And as you can see, I am not pushing down very hard at all. Not too hard at all. So I'm going to turn what I'm working on, because it's a bit easier for me to turn it, the paper, rather than my hand. Because if I had to turn my hand all the way around like this or like that, that would be strange. I don't think I'd be able to actually color like that. So it's just a bit easier to turn it off to the side. And again, we're just going to take time. We're not going to go crazy just coloring this in very quickly, because we have a bit of time to do it. The good thing as well too is that once you do this, it's a very simple project. So once you do this, you'll be able to repeat it as many times as you like. So you can have as many superheroes as you like. It won't make any difference how many times you either print off the template or even draw your own superhero. And that would be a good thing as well. As I say, the only trick with drawing your own superhero is just to make sure that your superhero is the same on the front and the back. And you need two separate pieces of paper. So this, when we cut this out, this will be the front, and when we cut that out, that will be the back. So you will need two different pieces of paper. So when you cut it out, and we're going to glue those together, and there's a good reason for that, which you'll see very shortly. So I've done red hair even. Here, oops, I missed a little bit here, didn't I? Goodness. So I've done red hair for my superhero here on their front. Now, if I go to the back of my superhero, I will put in some more hair here. And this is all hair right here. So we can take nice big kind of strokes with the pencil. And while I'm doing that, this is what I want to show you. So I come up nice and close so you can see here again with the pencil. Now, what I'm going to do as I color, okay, I'll hold it up here so you can see. As I color, I'm going to turn my pencil a little bit. And then when I color some more, I'm going to turn my pencil a little bit more. And as I color, I'm just going to turn it ever so slightly, just a tiny little bit each time. And when you do that, that allows you to keep the point of your pencil nice and sharp. And that's a really, really good thing. So that way you don't have to kind of keep sharpening your pencil in order to use it up, or in order to get a good point. And what happens is that you use it up. You tend to use up your pencils very, very quickly. And this will just prolong that. You won't need to sharpen your pencils as much. And that means you can do more coloring and less sharpening. And that, I'm sure, is something that you would prefer to do, because it's not an enormous amount of fun, I would have thought, coloring with a dull pencil. So if you have to stand up and go sharpen it, well, that gets a bit boring after a while, doesn't it? It'd be better to just continue to focus on the project that you're working on, just like we're focusing on our superhero flyers today. Now, so that's nearly there. Okay, so now I now have some red hair on the front of my superhero flyer, and I have some red hair on the back of my superhero flyer. And this is the back of my superhero. This is the back of their head, just here, this hair. That's the back of their head. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to choose a different red. So you can see they're very, very similar, but they're not quite the same. This one's a little bit brighter and this one's a little bit duller. That's the one I use. So now I'm going to use the brighter one, and I'm actually just going to put some highlights in. Just a little bit. And here I am going to push down quite hard. So if you can see there's a highlight there, I think you can see that in the camera. I'll lift it up a little bit. So you can see that there's a little bit of a highlight just right here. Okay, so I'm just going to put some highlights in because I think that looks nice for my superhero figure. After all, they are a superhero, so I suppose they should have superhero hair as well. Now, let's put those in just like that. There we go. So just a few little highlights there, and I might do some here in the back as well too. And you'll notice I'm holding it much closer to the tip here this time, and that's because I'm pushing down very hard, because I want to make this color very bright for my highlights. So that just means I'm going to push down a little bit harder than I did before. And I'm still going to turn my pencil though as I do it, just to keep my point nice and sharp. There we go. It's looking good. And the other thing you can do, and I'll show you this now actually, we do some maybe up at the top of the hair now. The other thing that you can do sometimes is, especially with colored pencils, so you can see I kind of have some highlights here, and I have a few highlights here. The other thing that you can do is you can always move over to your markers. Let's see. Now I have kind of a reddish one there. Let's see. Now I don't really see too much of it. I have some pinks, purples. There's a reddish one here. Yeah, there we have a red one there. So you can always get a marker as well, and you can actually use your marker to do some highlights as well. So maybe we'll do just some highlights like this in the back of my superhero's hair, just here. Just like that. Yeah, like that. That's good now. And we'll do one or two very small ones here, just to put a bit of depth into our superhero's hair. Because superheroes have to have amazing hair, don't they? We know that the superheroes always have good hair. So now, there we go. I'm very happy with that now. So now we have our superhero's hair done. So now we're going to have to do our superhero's face, I think, and maybe just kind of the back of their neck, and then their hands as well. So let's see, what colors would we make that? I think I'm going to use this. I'm going to use this brown, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it very lightly. Again, we don't want to push down really hard. Just nice and light, I think, is the way to do that. So once again, I'm going to hold it. As you can see, I'm holding it very far back, and we're just going to do that nice and brightly like that. And we'll turn it ever so slightly as we're doing it. And this is the other thing that's really good, I think, about colored pencils is the shading that you can achieve. So if you just push, like I did for the hair, you just push down on your pencil a little bit harder, you get a little bit darker. And sometimes when you push down too hard, of course, it can maybe be a little bit too dark, but that's okay, as you can, nothing is, or very few things in life actually have all the same color, exactly the same color. Very few things have that, I think. So now I'll just do that. There we go. And I'm sure that some of you are rushing ahead in the order to try and see what we can do next to make our superhero fly. But you're going to have to be patient and wait, unfortunately. So that's why I was saying to you, just take your time. Sometimes there is a lot of fun, I think, to be had in just the simple act of coloring. I think it's really, there's a big word that's called cathartic. And I think sometimes coloring is cathartic. And that just means coloring kind of makes you feel good because you're creating something. And as makers, which is what I am, I'm a maker. As makers, that's what we do, is we make things. And we very much believe that whenever you make something, it really doesn't matter what you make. So if you make maybe dinner, or if you make a drawing, or if you make a painting, or if you make a shelf, or it doesn't matter what you make, okay? But if you make something, then generally you feel better when you make something. After you finish making it, you feel quite good that you've completed that. And that, I believe, is more important than almost anything else. So the idea of making a thing perfectly isn't so good as it is just doing the making in the first place. So just doing the making in the first place often can be as rewarding as making it perfect, especially as I don't think there's too many things that are absolutely perfect in this world. And that's a good thing. Wouldn't it be terrible if everything was perfect? Goodness, that would be very boring, actually, I think, if everything was perfect. Now, that's quite good. I'm very happy with that. So we have our hair done, and we have our face and hands done. So now let's just move on. Now let's do some fun bits, right? So our superhero has kind of a costume. So they have some arms, and then they have the body, and then they have just part of the legs. We don't have all the legs, but that's okay. We don't have all the legs because we don't need them for this particular project. So let's see, what kind of colors do we want to do for the superhero's body? Again, you choose whatever colors you want. You do not have to follow me in any way at all. I'm going to go with an orange, I think. I'm going to go with an orange. I'm going to go with an orange for, I think, for the body, maybe. Yeah, I'm going to go with an orange for the body. So once again, I'm going to hold it quite high up here. And very gently, I'm just going to run it back and forth, just like this. There's another little thing I can tell you as well, too, a trick is, so let's say I'm going to color just here, and I'll show you. I lift it up so it's much easier to see. If I start to come into this area to color here, right, going straight back and forth is quite hard because it's easy to go over the edge of the lines. Not that that's too much of a problem going over the edge of the lines, that's okay. But sometimes you don't want to do that. So rather than go back and forth in a straight line, sometimes you can go in little circles. You can make little circles. So here, because this edge is very straight here, okay, I'm going to go back and forth there. Just straight back and forth, no problem. But when I get here, I'm going to start to make some circles. And again, you don't have to do it all in one go. You can just make some circles here. And circles can often be a much easier way to color something. And don't forget, you can turn the paper. There's no problem in turning the paper. like that. Okay, you can turn the paper rather than try and turn your hand all the way around. Turning the paper is definitely an easier way to go about it. Okay, definitely an easier way. As you can see, I'm turning it all the time. It just makes it, whatever makes it easier. And that's why sometimes working on paper, see when I get to the corner there, I do a circle. But that's why sometimes working on paper is easier, because if you're painting on a canvas, well, it's very difficult to turn a canvas, isn't it? Sometimes you have to do a lot of kind of standing on your head if you're painting on a canvas. So now I have the front of my superhero's shirt or jumper. So now I'll do the back. I think that's going to be an orange as well. Just like that. We'll fill in that area. Come down here, we'll start to do some circles when we get down here, just because that will be a little bit slower and easier. We'll make sure we don't go too far over the lines. And we'll come down here and we'll do some circles in here. Don't forget, every now and then, just turn your pencil a little bit. Just turn it just a little bit. And that will, again, keep your point nice and sharp, which just makes it easier to color, really, I think. There we go. Excellent. All right. Now, what color do I want to do with orange? What color goes well with orange? I wonder. Let's see. We could do some blue. I think blue. I think a light blue. I have a light blue and I have a light blue, a dark blue, and kind of a purpley blue. I wonder. I actually think I'm going to go for the purpley blue. I think I'm going to go for the purpley blue for my superhero's arms. I think we'll go for the purpley blue for that. No. Yeah, I like that. That looks good. Once again, we get down here, we'll just do some circles when we get to the edge. Some gently, nice and gently. And we go up here nice and gently, because that's a very narrow area to color into. And again, we don't have to do it very quickly. We have lots of time. And then when we're done, you can take your superhero outside and fly your superhero as much as you want. If you have brothers or sisters or friends, well, you can get them to make some superheroes. And you can set up some obstacle courses, or you could set up some cups and try and fly your superhero into some of those places. Into the cups, through a hoop, through an obstacle course, anything like that. So you can make a game out of it as well, too. We won't have time really to make up the game today, but use your imagination. Use your imagination to make up how you want your superhero to fly. And perhaps you have some other toys that your superhero could go and rescue some of those other toys. So maybe some of your other toys have been kidnapped by an evil monster. And your superhero can come along and rescue them. And that would be a nice thing, I think. That would be a very good thing. I would often find, certainly, maybe not so much now that I'm a little bit older than I was when I was your age. However, certainly I find, and I would do this with my niece. I have a niece who is 10 years old. I apologize. And my niece and I would often play some games in which we would take all the pillows off the sofa in our sitting room, and we would make little pockets, and we would pretend that some were underground, some were overground, and we would drop little bits of string down and save some of the animals in those places. Now, so your superhero could do that. All right, now we have the kind of small bit of the trousers, and then we have the logo, and I'm going to leave the logo of the superhero until last. But I'm going to do the trousers now, and I think I'm going to actually go back to my blue, and I have kind of a light blue here. So I think I'm just going to do a light blue down here, rather than the kind of purpley blue I used above. Yeah, that looks good to me. Now, and we're nearly at the point, we're nearly there, don't worry, we're nearly there where we're going to start to cut everything out, put it together. The putting together is very quick and very simple, I promise you. Do not worry, it will only take about 5 minutes to do all of that. As I said to you at the outset, this is a very easy project for you to make. Very, very easy, but good fun. And you will also, whether you know it or not, you will be learning some things about how things fly. Now, so I think we're bound to our logo. So I'm going to start, let me think. I'm going to start actually like this. I'm actually going to take a yellow. It's going to be very hard to see, but I'm going to take a yellow and I'm going to push down. I'm actually going to push down quite hard on this because yellow is a very light color. So it's very hard to see yellow sometimes. But nonetheless, I'm going to make the logo on the superhero's chest yellow. So here we go. And don't forget, because I'm pushing down hard in this case, just to turn your pencil, just to keep the point sharp. Okay. And of course, you don't have to push down so hard that it snaps the thing like that. Now, there we go. So now we have a bit of yellow there. So now I'm actually going to move. I need another color. I think green is going to be my friend here. So I'm going to use a green. And I think I would like my superhero maybe to be a little bit ecological. So a little bit saving the earth type of a superhero. So I'm going to just, for me, I'm going to draw a flower. But again, you can do any kind of design you want. You could do a letter. You could do a name. You could do a symbol. So I'm sure that you know Superman. So Superman has an S on his jumper. But you could put any symbol you want. But for me at the moment, I'm going to just going to draw a little flower. I'm going to draw a little bit of grass down here. Not much. I'm sure it's probably hard for you to see that. But when I'm done doing that, I'll hold it up so you can see it. Okay. And let's see, what color would I make my flower? And actually, do you know what? I think I'm going to use kind of a nice pink color here. And in this case, rather than the pencil, because it's just a flower, I'm going to use this marker. And most flowers, for me anyway, most flowers have 5 petals. Now, not all do certainly, but most do. You'll notice that if you will. So I'm going to do one just there, like that, and another one next to it, and on the other side, and another one at the bottom, and another one at the bottom there. And we'll just color those in just like that. Oh, there we go. Now, and I think once again, just to get some highlights on it there, I think what we might do is, in this case, I'm going to use my black marker, and I'm just going to put some nice gentle highlights on my flower, just to make it stand out a little bit. After all, this is the superhero's logo, so we want that to stand out a little bit. And I'm going to make just some little things there, just like that. So that's my superhero there now. So I'm all done with my superhero now. So I hold that up there. So as I said, I promised you, so you can see my kind of logo. I'm sure that yours is much nicer than mine because I just decided to do a flower. I had a notion because it's lovely and sunny out, and I thought the flowers are starting to bloom, so it would be a good idea to do a flower. I like that. So the next section, very straightforward, very easy. Now, it might be a situation here where you might want to get your parents just to give you a hand. So we're going to use some scissors, okay? So depending on, I can't see you there, so I don't know what age you are. If you are capable of using the scissors, then do. But if you're a little bit nervous about the scissors, then you just ask a parent or an older brother or sister to give you a hand. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to cut this in half first, rather than have the 2 pieces together. So I'm just going to cut this sheet in half, just like that. Okay, and we'll put one part over there just for the moment. Now, the same thing applies when you're cutting something out, especially when there's kind of lots of things that are not straight lines, right? And even like coming in here around our superhero's hands, that's very difficult. So the trick here always is to cut and move the paper, but not the scissors. Not the scissors. So the scissors should stay pretty much straight this way all the time. And you're going to be cutting like that the whole time. But you're going to move the paper. So you're going to move the paper. And that's generally the easiest way to cut things out. Not always, but mostly. And you don't have to worry too much about being perfect here. It's fine. Okay, as you see, I'm going to get to the point there. You see, I'm just going to turn the paper, but not the scissors. So the scissors are staying straight. And I'm just going to turn the paper. And you do the two things together. So you turn the paper and cut, and then you pause and move your hand, do some more turning, pause, move your hand, and turn, pause, move your hand, and open the scissors again. Okay. And so on, just like that. So you keep doing that. And we're going to cut out each piece of our superhero. And again, do not worry too much if it's not perfect. This is not about making things perfect. This is about doing a nice project and having a little bit of fun at the same time. We can worry about doing perfect things when they're required. So sometimes perfect things are cooking, because you wouldn't want to make a pizza, for instance, and forget the cheese. That would be no fun, would it? Pizza without cheese. I wouldn't like that. I like cheese on my pizza. So now we have that. So we're done with that bit of paper. So we have the front of our superhero. So now we're going to do the back, and exactly the same way. So we will just start to cut. And again, we're mostly going to move the paper more than anything else. Okay. We'll mostly move the paper. And as always, cut and pause. Open the scissors, bring the paper in. Move the paper, pause when you hit a corner. Open the scissors, move it in, and then turn the paper the other way. And so on, keep going. Oftentimes as well, it depends on what you're cutting, but oftentimes people think small scissors to cut small things is the right way to go. And that's actually not always the case, funny enough. Sometimes big scissors to cut small things can be good. Now, it depends on what you're cutting. For instance, I have made some projects where I have blown eggs. So in other words, what you do is you take the yolk and the white out of your egg by poking a tiny little hole in it, and then you cut a hole in the egg. And those scissors, you have to use very sharp, very small scissors, because, funny enough, it's an eggshell, and eggshells are very delicate, whereas paper here is not delicate at all, as we can see now. Okay, so we are done with our scissors, and so we have our superhero here almost ready to fly. So we have a front and we have the back. So what you can do is you can turn the front over and turn the back over. Now, trust me on this, right? Trust me on this. So when you turn those over, what I want you to do is just get a pencil or a marker. It doesn't really matter what you get. I'll use this red one. And I want you just to come in and draw kind of an outline of the superhero. And I'll show you what I mean. So just watch first for a moment. And I'm going to come in about 1 centimeter to 1.5 centimeters. And I'm just going to very roughly, because this bit really is not going to be perfect, I'm going to draw around about like that. And I'm going to stop right there. And I'm going to come down here. Same thing. I'm going to come around and I'm going to stop right there. So I think you can probably see that. So you can see I've stopped. I haven't come down to the very bottom. Okay, so I'll lift that up just in case you can't see it. So I've come down, but I've stopped. I haven't come all the way there yet. And there's a reason for that, and you will see that in just a moment. So we're going to do this exactly the same thing here. Very quickly and very roughly. We're going to come in about 1.5 centimeters. And we're going to come the other way. And we'll stop. So for both of those, as you can see, okay, I've stopped at the bottom. And the reason for that is from the edge to where we've drawn our line is where we're going to glue. But we're not going to put any glue in this area here. So this whole area, and I'll shade that in very quickly, just very roughly, that area is not going to have any glue at all. That whole area right there is not going to have any glue, and neither will there be any glue down here. Okay, so we're going to make like a little pocket is what we're going to make. So our superhero ultimately is going to be a little pocket. So now is the time for our glue. As I'd say, kind of a standard Pritt stick, or this is UHU stick. Any kind of this kind of dry glue is good. If you don't have dry glue, that's okay. If you have wet glue, that's fine too. But wet glue obviously will take just a little bit of time to dry. And with wet glue, don't put it on too heavily. Okay, don't put your wet glue on too heavily. Otherwise, it will take a long time to dry. So again, I have a mat over my desk here, right? I have a mat over my desk. So I'm just going to put my glue on, but if you're working on a kitchen table or something like that, you might want to just put a piece of paper under it so that you don't get glue all over your table. That would not be a good thing. So I'm just going to take this, I'm going to open it a little bit more, and I'm going to put some glue on here all the way around. Now, you only need to put the glue on one side. You don't need to put the glue on both sides of your superhero. So just the one side. But don't forget, all these areas, okay, that we colored here, or I showed you, are not going to get any glue. It's very important, because if you glue the whole thing together, your superhero is not going to fly. And then you might have to start over. That wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but as we've come this far together on this project, it would be nice to finish it. Now, that's it. So I put the lid back on my glue. We put that up there. Now, I take this piece. This happens to be the front. It doesn't matter whether you did the front or the back. That doesn't make any difference. But I'm going to take the front, and I'm very carefully, I'm going to align it up so that the two, it's not going to be like that. And I'm going to align it up nice and carefully, and I'm going to stick one side to the other side. And you can take your time just to make sure it's pretty aligned up. And when you're pretty happy with that, then you can go ahead and push it down. So then you can go ahead and push it down. And you can push outwards like that. Okay, like so. Now I'm going to grab a tissue, because I know that when I pick that up, I'm going to have a little bit of glue around here, and that's absolutely fine. But we don't necessarily want that glue there, so I'll just give that a wipe and try and get as much of the stickiness off there. We can clean it properly later. Okay, and don't forget, if you're working on a project, whenever you work on a project, always clean up after your project. Don't let someone else clean up for you. Okay, so I'm going to squeeze that together nice and gently all the way around my superhero so that it is stuck together. But the one place it's not going to be stuck together is just at the bottom, at the very bottom, where the superhero's trousers are. Okay, so now watch when I do this. So I can open that just a little bit, and it should be just big enough to, yeah, get a finger. And now, if you can see that, it's like a finger puppet now, right? So it's like a finger puppet now. Okay, so you should be able to, and you could actually make finger puppets like this, but we're not going to do that. Okay, so this is the very end of our project. So as you can see there, okay, we've made a little pocket, and that pocket we are going to fill with air. And that air is going to come, where's my straw? There it is. That air is going to come from your straw. Okay, so all you're going to do, you're going to take your straw, okay, and if you have a bendy one, as I said, you could make a bit of an L shape, and maybe not quite an L, but an L with going off to the side there a little bit, not an exact L. And all you're going to do is you're going to put your superhero on the end of the straw like that, and you're going to blow really hard through the straw, and your superhero should fill with air and fly off the end of your straw. It's going to be very difficult for me to show you that here on camera, but I'll come back here and we'll try and see if we can get our superhero to fly straight up that way. Let's see if we can get our superhero to fly that way. So I'll show you the superhero's head, and here we go. On 3. 1, 2, 3. And there it went, flying halfway across the room over there. Actually, I'm not sure where it is. I can't see it now. It's gone flying all the way over there somewhere. And I can't even see where it went. So that is your superhero flyer. And if you want, of course, look, I have another one here. This one's not colored in. This is just my demo one, but this is glued together. So I could make this one fly as well the same way. So you just have to make that little pocket in there and just put the straw in and blow really hard once. Take a deep breath and blow, and your superhero will go flying off there. And that's what I was saying. What you can do is you can use other toys or other creatures if you have them in your house, and you can make all different kinds of scenes with them and use your imagination to kind of see where they are, and maybe your superhero can go and save them. I have actually had people as well be very, very clever, far more clever than I am, I can assure you. And what they've done is, so this is the front of an uncolored superhero, but what they did was on the back, after they colored it, they got a little tiny bit of fabric and they cut it out and they made a little cape for the superhero, and they stuck the cape on, and that was a fantastic idea. I saw that from someone who did a project before, and it was brilliant. So that kind of brings us to the end of what we're doing. Now I'll swap back over here. Now, so that kind of brings us to the end of our superhero flyer project. So I hope that you enjoyed the project, and I hope your superhero is flying all over the place now. And if you have any questions, again, please feel free, put them into the chat. I can see I kind of have the chat open here now, so I can see if anybody has any questions. As always, if you would like more projects and things like that, have a look at our YouTube page. We have some origami up there to folding paper. We do lots of other projects as well, not just things with paper. So as I said, we do STEAM projects. So, you know, there is Engineers Week that comes up at the end of the year. There's Science Week. There's Maths Week. We do all kinds of different projects, generally with libraries and in schools and things like that. But we also have quite a lot of free things, like you've done today, that are up on our YouTube channel as well. And you can just log on to the YouTube channel, have a look, and follow along. So, pardon me. That, as I say, brings us to the very end of our superhero flyer. And as we always like to finish up, we just kind of say we have a little catchphrase, which is just to engage, to explore, and always just enjoy what you're doing. So I've been Chris Reyna. Thank you very much. Enjoy your superhero and take it out into the sun and let it fly. All the best. Bye-bye.